In the 1970s, Japan despised coffee. Not disliked, despised. People wrinkled their noses at the bitter aroma. The taste? Too bold. The culture? Foreign and chilly. Tea reigned supreme. Coffee was a blunder. But one firm, Nestlé, was eager to reverse that. And after throwing away millions on commercials, sales, and all the marketing tricks in the book, they didn't succeed. Until, suddenly, they hired a child psychologist. Not a barista, not a chef, a child psychologist. And what came along? It wasn't advertising, it was mind control. If you believe this is fair, yes, it is. Nestlé sold coffee, but they rewired a country's palate. And in a matter of decades, Japan went from despising coffee to being the fourth largest coffee importer in the world. This is the crazy, true account of how Nestlé manipulated psychology to brainwash an entire society into loving coffee. But to everyone not aware of this, let's dive in. During the 1970s, Japan was one of the world's fastest growing economies. Technology, fashion, industry, a nation racing headlong into the future. When it came to taste, though, Japan remained old-fashioned. Tea, green tea to be exact, was a part of the culture, intensely, emotionally, ceremoniously. Coffee? That was the stranger, a bitter, noisy, hasty drink with no heart. So when Nestlé came charging into Tokyo with stacks of Nescafe, they expected to dominate the market in weeks. Spoiler alert, they didn't. They launched huge advertising campaigns, sales, promotions, free samples, and whatever you could think of. And people detested it. Sales just wouldn't budge. Stores stocked up but couldn't clear the shelves. People complained coffee tasted like charred wood. Too strong, too Western, too not Japan. Nestlé managers were shocked. They had won in more than 100 nations, but in Japan, they were sinking. Nestlé did everything according to the book. Focus groups, taste tests, coupons, and even endorsements by celebrities. If it were some other brands, it would have been a hit, but coffee? It wasn't cultural at that moment, so we can say nothing succeeded. Why? Because Nestlé was selling coffee as a product, not an emotion. They were attempting to battle culture with coupons. They attempted to reason their way into Japan. But here's what they forgot. People don't make purchase decisions based on reason. People make purchase decisions based on emotions, particularly when it comes to taste. So Nestlé asked a radical question. What if this isn't a marketing problem? What if it's a psychological problem? That's when they made the most daring thing in company history. They hired a child psychologist. Not a marketing expert, but a child psychologist specializing in imprinting. And what came next was absolute genius. Nestlé hired Clotaire Rapaille, a French psychoanalyst and marketing expert, to figure out why Japan wasn't drinking coffee. But what they found changed the face of marketing. He told Nestlé that taste is not innate. It's developed, learned, trained from childhood. Indeed, the most powerful taste recollections are derived from childhood since they are tied to emotionally heightened experiences, security, comfort, love, and Japan had no childhood connection with coffee. So rather than shoving bitter black coffee down adults' throats, Nestlé had to sow the seed in children. They didn't require a campaign. They required a childhood memory, so they invented something new altogether. Sweet, sugary, coffee-tasting desserts. Coffee-flavored sweets, desserts like coffee jelly and chocolate infused with coffee, were everywhere. It was sweet, soft, familiar, and above all, it didn't taste of coffee. Not exactly, but it smelt of it. It was a little bitter, enough to create familiarity. They weren't selling coffee, they were sowing coffee memories. Consider this. A kid opens his lunchbox, a small coffee candy from mom, or a gentle coffee-flavored jelly from grandma. It's not a snack, it's comfort, it's warmth, it's home. And that is where Nestlé found gold. Because years down the line, those children grow up. Now, that evergreen bitter coffee smell, it fills you with nostalgia. The bitterness isn't offensive anymore, it's soothing. If you consider this manipulation, yes, it is. But it's genius-level manipulation. Nestlé didn't battle Japanese culture, they rewrote it. By the 1980s, those same children became teenagers. Now, they were prepared for instant coffee. By the 1990s, blazing cafe culture was in full swing. And Nestlé, they weren't merely in the game, they were ruling it. With a new approach, Nestlé went all out. And this time, it paid off. Nescafé was in every home. Vending machines appeared in every alleyway, street corner, and subway stop. Bottled coffee, canned coffee, hot, cold, sweet, bitter. Coffee was a way of life. They aligned themselves with manga, TV dramas, pop stars. They sold more than coffee. They sold atmospheres. Coffee became synonymous with Westernity, with cosmopolitan Japanese youth, with schools and nighttime train rides. And it didn't end there. Nestlé opened high-end Nescafé cafes in Tokyo. They weren't like Starbucks. They resembled art installations. Simple, stunning, hyper-modern. And they were intended to be experiential, to feel like the future. It wasn't coffee anymore. It was an identity. Here's what makes this story so terrifying and genius. The human brain loves familiarity. It's wired to seek comfort in things we've experienced before, especially smells and tastes linked to emotion. The psychologist Nestlé hired knew that childhood is where this blueprint is laid. So Nestlé didn't sell coffee to Japan. They educated a whole generation to want it without even knowing it. The outcome? A country that once despised coffee became addicted. Japan is now the world's fourth largest coffee importer. Let that sink in. A tea-based culture that used to keep coffee aside now consumes more than 450,000 tons of coffee annually. You'll find vending machines dispensing piping hot espresso, tiny cans of gourmet blends at 2 a.m., artisan cafes in Kyoto serving pour-overs so delicate they look like tea ceremonies. Coffee is everywhere, and Nestlé, they started it, not with force, but with childhood, with memory, with emotion. Now, here's the part most people won't talk about. Was this brilliant? Yes. But was it also dark? Also, yes. Because Nestlé's plan wasn't simply smart marketing, it was long-term emotional manipulation. They didn't sell a product. They created addicts, not caffeine, but of comfort. They targeted the most emotionally vulnerable time, childhood, and built a loyalty pipeline so deep it could last generations. If you think that's brilliant marketing, yes, it is. But it's also a reminder. When companies know more about psychology than we know ourselves, we never had a chance. Nestlé didn't win over Japan with taste. They won it over with emotions. They didn't attempt to make coffee fit Japan. They made Japan fit in coffee. And it succeeded spectacularly. So the next time you open a can of cold brew in Tokyo, just recall, it's not merely a beverage. It's the product of one of the greatest psychological marketing moves in history. If you believe this is fair, yes, it is. Tell us in the comments, should companies be able to advertise like this, or is this going too far? If you liked this dive, give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to Wealth Files because more exciting content is yet to come.